So that's the indoors. But what about our gardens? The quest for that perfect manicured garden often involves harmful chemicals. The problem is many common garden chemicals can damage soil, earthworms, and threaten biodiversity. But are there alternatives? Is there a more natural, less damaging approach to gardening? To find out, I've come to the Parscourt Estate, home to one of the most perfect historic gardens in the world. Peter Dowdall is a celebrity gardener who advocates for a more natural approach to gardening. So I asked him for some tips.
Peter, for householders now and gardeners trying to avoid using pesticides and herbicides, what should they look out for?
Well, the most common problem in gardens, Duncan, and in fact, there you see it, it's slug damage, slug and snail. You see the holes there. Even in the middle of the winter, slugs and snails are out there causing damage, and it's the most common problem for Irish gardens. And there are many, many ways, obviously, of how you deal with that then, but unfortunately what most of us do to control slugs and snails is we go and get the cheapest, nastiest slug pellets that we can get in the shop. And I refer to them as cheap and nasty because the active ingredient is a thing called methaldehyde, which is a formulation of alcohol, which, as well as killing the slugs and snails, is also toxic to the birds and to the hedgehogs, the predators of the problem in the first place.
Right, and the birds and the hedgehogs are the ones that cure the problem.
And we're putting out a pellet that is going to kill them.
That's terrible.
It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
Now, there are other alternatives. There are many other alternatives, I'm glad to say. One of them is a kind of a DIY product, and as the fella says, here's one I prepared earlier. It's an old yogurt container, and what I'm going to do with it, I've cut little holes here in it, but what I'm going to do with it, if you were wondering why I was walking around with a bottle of beer in my pocket.
Yeah, a little bit suspicious, I thought.
You were being far too polite, but to ask.
Yeah.
I'm going to fill this with the beer. I'm going to bury it in the soil.
Okay.
I'll fill it with soil up to here, so that the slugs and snails can get in. They'll drown and die happy, I hope, in the beer. But there's a lid on it now, so they're not available. The dead slugs aren't available to the birds or to the hedgehogs.
And what draws the slugs to this in the first place?
It's the smell of the alcohol. It'll attract every slug in the parish to this old yogurt container.
So they'll just swarm in on this?
Yes, and they'll drown, they can't get out, and they'll die in it. Right? I'll just bring it up. I don't want to go too high with the beer, Duncan, because they might actually get out again.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
So keep it down a bit.
Keep it down a bit so they can't get out. So that's it. So the lid is on it then. It's not available to the predators. But there are many other options as well, or several other options available in the control of slugs. I'll show you a few of them there.
You have a bag of tricks there, I see. Yeah.
I'll show you a few of them.
Very good.
So if all that seems like a bit too much work, when it isn't really a bit too much work, but you can go and get a slug pellet. If you look for one here that contains the active ingredient ferric phosphate, okay, that is just as effective in the control of slugs. But it's not toxic to the predators. It's not going to harm the birds or the hedgehogs. And if a bird or a hedgehog does manage to get a slug that has been killed by this pellet, it's not going to harm it.
Right, and it's not a hazardous material either, is it?
No, unfortunately you still do have the plastic packaging to deal with, but you don't have any chemical residue or anything like that, no.
Are there other solutions now?
There are. So you just want to protect a particular pot. Yeah. This is a copper tape, so it's basically sticky tape on one side and then copper on the other side. Thanks. This appeals to me. I don't know what that says about me, right. But you know the saliva that the slug excretes as it's moving. You know that trail that it leaves behind.
Yeah.
Well, that reacts with the copper to give it a little mini electric shock.
Oh wow!
And it pushes the slug off. The slug can't cross it.
And it's really in small areas that you can do this.
Yes, it's just, as I say, something like a raised bed, because if you leave a gap, if I left a gap there, the slug will just find the gap and get through it. Right. So in a bigger area, it's not going to be cost effective, it's not going to be practical. Well, any pot at all that you work on.
So the slugs can still be there then for hedgehogs or for birds too?
Absolutely. It goes back to real basics, Duncan. It's nature starts to work for itself again. So you've got a healthy supply of the food for the birds and for the hedgehogs, which in time will control the slug problem. It's not going to happen overnight, you know that, but as the bird population increases, if you're lucky enough to have a garden that can take hedgehogs, then you're going to increase their numbers and they're going to feed off the slugs and snails, and you're left with undamaged plants.
That's a great solution.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Brilliant. Absolutely.
Peter's approach is one that gardeners right across the country could easily emulate.